Hi, welcome back to another edition of Forbes 2 on 2. I'm Aaron Perlut, and I'm joined today by one of my Forbes fellow contributors, Scott Goodson, who's the founder and CEO of Strawberry Frog and the author of a new book, Uprising. Now, Scott, you always speak of your firm as a movement agency, which I think is very different from the way most advertising and other marketing agencies kind of frame themselves. Tell us what that really means.
Well, basically, it's kind of changed over the years. When I first thought of the idea, I was living in Sweden, and Swedish brands always had a purpose when they went out to market to consumers. So they had a value proposition, but they also had values. They had a philosophy. So when I worked with IKEA, you weren't just buying furniture, you were um, part of a movement that was not just for the rich, but for the wise, and it was about spreading design for everybody. When I worked with a smart car, launching that, it wasn't just a two-door car, it was something to reinvent the urban environment. So all of these were philosophical brands, and the idea of a movement really came from that and that culture. But it's taken on a whole different meaning in today's world where consumers are restless, they're active, they want to participate, and you can build a brand today by creating a movement. And as an agency, we dedicate ourselves to doing that, and we've been doing it for about 13 years with brands like IKEA, with PepsiCo, and most recently, we've been working with the smart car again to build a brand.
And obviously that plays into your new book that's quickly gaining a lot of buzz, Uprising. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, Uprising, it started with basically, I couldn't pick up a newspaper without finding an uprising happening somewhere in the world. In obviously in Tunisia and Egypt, and most recently in Syria, Greece, the United Kingdom, and here just around the corner on Wall Street. And I just felt that there was something that had changed, that we were in this age of uprisings, and that had particular relevance to marketing and to businesses. And it's a controversial thought to think that businesses should take advantage of social movements. I mean, business ultimately has no part in being with the march. It's really for movements are really about nobler causes. But I think I really felt that because of the brands that I built in the past and the way that I built them, I thought that this was really a time for brands to create uprisings for themselves, and that they could crystallize an idea on the rise in culture, they could create communities, they could sponsor movements and align with movements, and by doing so, they could become really relevant to consumers. And I believe that brands that do that, they tend to frame their business in a higher purpose that can make the world a better place, as well as sell a lot of product.
Now, you coined the phrase movement marketing 12 years ago or so. Why do you think it's become particularly relevant today?
Well, getting back to what I said a minute ago, I think, Uprise, look, the Coney 2012 explosion that happened, a week ago, where a filmmaker put a video on, and now there's over 100, and I don't know how many there are now. There was 150,000, and there was like 2 million, and then there was like 50 million, and then it was 100 million. I don't know what it is now, but it's just an example of the world we're living in. Anyone, any individual, any tech innovator, any person with an idea, as well as a politician or a community organizer or a CEO of a massive organization, anyone can spark a mass movement today that can spread like wildfire around the planet. It is this new age that we're living in. And if you think about that as a brand, and you build a brand with a movement as your marketing strategy, it really changes the way you think about marketing. It doesn't start with the product and with a USP. It starts with an idea on the rise in culture. You first have to identify that idea and somehow tie it back to your brand benefit or your brand purpose in some credible way. so that immediately your brand becomes highly relevant to a huge mass of people. I'll give you an example. Last year we worked with the Smart Car, and they were losing market share every year. Uh, they were marketing themselves as a small two-door, efficient fuel efficient vehicle, and the number of people that were interested in that product were dwindled. And so we created a movement strategy for that brand, which was all about fighting against big, dumb excess, fighting against uh, dumb, massive overconsumption. And immediately the brand touched a nerve with hundreds of thousands of Americans who were in this economic downturn, recessionary mental state that felt that excess was ridiculous. And immediately we had all these passionate people that were saying, yes, we agree with this idea of fighting against dumb overconsumption. So immediately the brand went from being a small little car that had little relevance to becoming a symbol of a movement against excess in America. And we had the top of the funnel filled with so many people that had never even thought about a smart car. And sales went up each month, 175%, because we were able to bring in new, fresh people into the brand. So it's a great example of how a movement can reframe a product by aligning it with something that was happening out there in America, which was a backlash against mass overconsumption.
Would you say that Lee Scott, when he was still the CEO of Walmart, had a similar effect when he really started changing the green supply chain and a lot of the products that Walmart provides, just because they've got so much sheer volume and mass in the marketplace globally?
I think absolutely that he was responding to an idea that was popular among a huge swath of people. That is obviously a business strategy that was successful, and I think companies can use that when they're redefining themselves in today's world. I think smaller brands, maybe not such large retail organizations, um, brands per se, as opposed to companies, can single out ideas like the one you cited that are particularly relevant to not a tiny group of people, but a huge swath of people. It's like thinking like a politician. If you think about, what politicians do, they don't talk to the niche. They talk to, you know, millions of people about issues that are relevant to their lives. What is it that makes you feel excited? What is it that's important to your family? What's important to you as an individual that touches a nerve? That's the starting point. And then tie that back to your product in an intelligent, creative way. And there you have the energy of a movement that propels your brand into to the hearts in a way that, television advertising can't do. Because, traditional advertising, just basically when you spend money, you create awareness, it goes up. It's a creative, funny ad. When you stop spending money, the advertising goes down, the awareness goes down, money goes up, awareness goes up, it goes down. With the movement, you're tying into an idea that's relevant, and it's like a sustainable marketing idea. And uh, it's just a very different way of thinking about how you build your brand. Your movement is your media channel. And the goal then is, how do you continue that movement? How do you sustain it with adding fuel to the fire, coming up with new content, new ideas that stimulate the community to spread that idea to others, and also evolve it, because an idea will evolve over time. It's like I remember a few years ago when the Ukraine. This is a totally different example, but when the Ukraine went through a revolution, it started as an anti-corruption movement that became immediately a pro-democracy movement, and then within a very short period of time, it became a pro-Western movement. So movements have the ability to evolve over time depending on how people engage with it. And that's what's happening with consumers. They get involved with the brand, and brand owners have to be confident enough to let go of that brand and give the consumers the opportunity to play with it and evolve that movement. Sticking your head in the sand is not going to solve it. I mean, we've seen the backlash against brands that haven't engaged with consumers and movements, like Susan G. Komen or Bank of America, when they tried to put a $5 charge on their debit card. It was a huge backlash. So we have consumers that are restless. They want to get involved. They want to participate. And the best way to do that is to create a movement that they can be a part of. And then as a brand, you can help stimulate them and keep them hopefully moving in the direction you'd like them to be in.
So you mentioned Smart Car. Tell us one more anecdote about maybe one of the movements you're most proud of creating with Strawberry Frog.
Most recently, a movement that we've been very proud of is we've been working with one of America's most iconic brands called Jim Beam, and
It's
and it's a
delicious.
great brand, huh?
It's a delicious brand,
It's a
yes.
delicious brand. Uh, I'm a Jim Beam, please. Um, it's it's also it's up there with Harley Davidson, as an iconic American brand, and um, we this was a brand that for many years had been rudderless, and we have been over the last 2 years working on a movement for them, which has all been about bold, an emboldened spirit, bold choices. Because we looked at it in America and we said, this country is a great country, and what it needs is a culture of bold decision making, a culture of bold choice. And that was what we did. We started a movement for that brand that celebrated those individuals that made bold choices and those individuals that had, you know, ended up in a life as a result of making those bold choices. And we created an amazing range of activities, and most recently, the oldest member of the Bean family, his name is Fred No, um, had made a bold choice to get a big tattoo done on his arm of a Jim Beam tattoo. And we were able, with that, to generate like 1 million fans on Facebook that are following this bold movement. So Jim Beam is a great example, and actually we did a TV commercial that was voted by Time as one of the top ads of the year last year. So it's been a great client to work with, and a great movement to work on.
I think you should be particularly trying to appeal to the people of mustached American descent that could very well get behind Jim Beam in terms of a mustached American bourbon movement. So,
I think that would be. I'm going to take that up
yeah,
after our call.
please do, please do. All right, Scott, well, tell us where we can find a copy of Uprising. What's the easiest way for someone to go purchase the book?
The easiest way to go purchase the book is you can go to uprisingmovements.com and you get a choice. You can either buy it at Amazon or at Barnes& and Noble. Or if you want to go even easier, you can just go to Amazon or Barnes& and Noble.
Great.
Either way is easier.
Great. Well, this has been great, Scott. I really appreciate your time. This has been yet another edition of Forbes 2 on 2. I'm Aaron Perlut. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.